This is Greg Fowler for Online London, and with me is Gilles Longtin, a candidate in Ward 1. Welcome.
Thank you.
If elected, how many hours per week on average do you expect that you'd spend working in your elected capacity?
I would expect probably on average to be probably between 25 to 35 hours a week. And again, depending on the anticipated workload that comes up, there's a lot of things going on in Ward 1 right now, so it may even creep up to be more than that. I do know right now that it's listed as a part-time job, just had potential of turning into a full-time job, and then we'd be looking at more hours afterwards. But I said on average 25 to 35.
Do you think ward councillors are currently paid enough for the amount of work they'll have to do during the next term of City Council?
Right now, currently, yes, they are being paid more than enough. With the additional benefits that go along with it, the tax breaks, etc., the current wage is more than acceptable.
London's governance model is undergoing significant change, and that includes elimination of Board of Control. Do you think that this will increase the necessity for ward councillors to inform themselves about issues outside of their own ward boundaries?
I think as they should, just to be kept up to date and up to touch with what is going on entirely in London. So you can't just stick to your own ward, of course you must look at others as well. So with the elimination of the Board of Control, I think it's just a good idea, period, that everyone should be aware of what's going on and make themselves aware of what's going on, in other words.
Do you live within the geographical boundaries of the electoral area in which you are contesting the election?
Yes, I do.
How many of your post-teenagers have you lived in London?
10.
Have you attended any standing committee meetings over the course of the last 4 years?
For the City of London itself, no, I have not.
Have you attended any Board of Control meetings the last 4 years?
No, as well.
Are you familiar with the Municipal Act and the Municipal Councillor's Guide?
Very much so, yes. I've read over both.
Strengthening Neighbourhoods Task Force recommended development of a neighbourhood matching fund type program for large and small community projects, besides those which are celebrations or events. Do you support that recommendation?
I do. There are some things that need to be looked at seriously into it, but I do support it itself, yes.
What maximum per project amount do you think that the city ought to contribute towards it?
That would go, again, I would look at per capita as far as the need and the amount of people.
Do you support development of a community program to fund the creation of public art in public places?
Yes and no. Looking at, as I said, yes as far as what the cost would be to go along with that, and no if they do exceed, again, exaggerated levels, no.
Should the City of London and its boards and commissions embrace the concept of making their data open and accessible to everyone as often as is possible, and adopting open standards for that data?
Very much so. I mean, what goes on in City Council is everyone's business, so everyone should have access to that information.
When existing software applications have to be replaced or when software licenses have to be renewed, should the city adopt the use of open source software whenever that's possible?
Looking at it, yes, but I'm not entirely sure of everything that goes on with that question, so I'd rather just leave it at that.
Is the city's communication department being given enough resources in terms of money and personnel to properly maintain the city website and to inform citizens in a timely fashion?
Yes, I've always been very impressed with the City of London website.
Should citizens be able to subscribe to subject-specific RSS feeds from City Hall in order to stay informed?
If that's a possibility with the new technology that has come in, if that is a possibility, then yes, very much so.
Should citizens be able to download the agendas of upcoming public meetings, including advisory committee meetings, at least a week in advance?
Yes, again, if they'd like to attend that meeting or have something they may want to say on behalf of it, all the more reason that they should have access to that agenda.
Despite the requirement of the Municipal Act that all City Hall meetings be public, except for specific reasons, It's been argued that they most often are not because of the inability of the public to hear what's being said. Do you support the adoption of a policy which mandates the use of microphones in all public meetings at City Hall?
Yes, I do.
Do you think that the City of London ought to be webcasting all of its public meetings?
Oh, certainly. Again, we have the technology, we should be using it
Should the city's boards and commissions be webcasting all of their public meetings?
as well.
Do you think that the chairpersons of public meetings at City Hall ought to have to announce motions and amendments to motions and the number of votes for and against those motions so that the public can understand what's taking place?
Very much so. Again, you'd like to know where each person stands on it, so of course, the information should be available.
Should London hire an Auditor General?
To be accountable, yes.
Should homeowners have to pay a percentage of the cost for the repair of damage to underground infrastructure on their own property that has been caused by city-owned trees?
No. If it's a city-owned tree, again, I believe it would be city to take care of it.
Do you agree with the placemaking concept of neighborhood gateways?
No.
Should there be increased user representation on the London Transit Commission?
I'm not 100% sure of that question itself, so I would say pass.
If the City of London is going to provide venture capital to businesses, should the city be guaranteed a return on its investment in the event that those businesses become profitable?
Yes.
Should people be allowed to naturalize their lawns?
I'm going to have to say within reason again. I understand the need for it, but at the same time, you've got to look at your neighbor.
Are London's pedestrians and pedestrian issues sufficiently represented at City Hall?
No, they're not.
The traffic and parking bylaw prohibits people from using any sidewalk for any purpose other than pedestrian traffic, except as specifically permitted. Should downtown patios, which consume most of the width of the public sidewalk, be permitted?
They could be a major eyesore and a problem for passerby. So, no, I would say that they need to retract that a little bit and make it more accessible for everyone to be able to use that sidewalk.
When closure of a public sidewalk for construction purposes takes place, what steps should be required to ensure that pedestrians are not forced out onto the roadway in a manner which puts them at risk?
It's a good question. I've seen it happen many a time there on Dundas Street where there's construction being done. Safety, I'd have to say maybe even the like a walkway with a cover and a rail. That doesn't eliminate the problem, but it certainly makes it more safe.
Is the warranted sidewalk program sufficiently funded?
I'm not 100% sure of that program, so I can't say.
Is the warranted walkway program sufficiently funded?
I can't say.
Old unlit streets are not lit unless there's a local improvement program application and cost sharing amongst owners. Do you agree with that policy?
Not amongst owners. It should be a city responsibility.
Do you think that special funding ought to be provided to London Police for the purchase of additional speed watch radar trailers and the cost of having the auxiliary police section deploy them on a frequent basis?
No.
Should the city be spending as much as it is per year from the federal gas tax to construct on-road bike lanes in London?
Yes.
Should bicycles be allowed on public sidewalks?
No.
Should persons in motorized wheelchairs and other mobility devices that are on the public sidewalk be obliged to yield for pedestrians?
Of course.
Should the City of London install more bike racks?
Yes.
Is the theft of bikes an important issue?
It's becoming more and more of a problem, so yes.
Do you have any suggestions about what might be done to combat the problem?
Better advertising campaigns, getting people to understand that they need to lock up and be more secure and put bikes in proper lockup, like I said, also at the same time, be aware of your own surroundings.
Is the City of London currently spending enough money to promote its web-based ride match service?
I've used it. I'd have to say yes at this point.
Should there be dedicated and discounted carpool parking spaces on downtown streets and in city-owned lots?
Discounted? Not necessarily. Carpools, definitely.
Should every signalized London intersection provide advanced left turns?
Not necessarily, no.
Does the city currently provide sufficient funding for the community gardens program?
I'd have to say no at this point.
Do you think dogs ought to have to be muzzled when they're not on their owner's property?
Yes.
Should dogs be allowed at community events?
Well, certainly. Again, we're using the muzzle law as well, yes.
Do you think people ought to be allowed to raise chickens in their backyards?
Personal choice, however, again, I'd have to say within reason.
That concludes the questions and answers. Thanks for your cooperation.